Hey guys, it's Micah from Sapulpa Times, and I'm here. We're going to do a special segment. Have Carla Gunn, our vice mayor, in the chair here. This is great. This is actually the first time in, I think, a few years since we've sat down together to talk. And today, specifically, we're talking about the Booker T. Washington Center that is scheduled to break ground in another week and a half or something, right?
Yes, yes.
So
Excited.
I know that this particular project, well, first of all, just a little bit of background for those of you who don't know. This is what I consider to be the last big community construction project. And I know we've got the fire training center is
Yeah.
another big one, but I don't really think people care that much about it, except unless your house is on fire, you want to make sure they're getting trained. But as far as like, the entire community being able to enjoy that, I think, would you say that's right? Is this probably the last of those projects, the big ones?
Yes, Booker T was one of the biggest, I think, with the $8.5 million on the bond, and then the training center, which is definitely important to our firefighters and
Yeah, of
having. I think that they
course.
part of that was being able to train here, and they had to go other places to train, and for us to have a training center, I think if memory serves me right, it would help with our taxes too to be able to have a training center here. So, and maybe that's something like it's been so long that we talked about this in 2018, so maybe my facts might be a little cloudy, but the training center was definitely an important part of peace,
Yeah, I think
safety.
taxes and maybe the insurance
Yes,
also. Yeah,
yes,
okay.
correct.
Yeah. And then I know that, yeah, we thought the firefighters were having to go to Stillwater to do some training, and
Yes,
now it sounds like we're setting ourselves up when maybe we can bring people to us.
absolutely.
And anytime we can get people into Sapulpa, that's usually a pretty good thing.
Yes.
And that's what the BTW building is going to do too. So I'm real excited about this. Now, this has been a long time coming. We were just talking earlier. We've been talking about the Geo bond since 2018, and that's when the conversation really started, I think, on having the BTW center on that. And then it was passed in late 2019, and then 2020 was the official Geo bond name, right? And here we are, 2025, almost heading into 2026.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and we're finally going to break ground on this. So, can you give them kind of a summary of what's happened between now and then?
Well, yes, definitely. And I just kind of want to, God rest his soul, Mayor Green, because really,
Yeah,
it takes a person. He had to stand up because that was the start of change for Sapulpa, that bond. It was a lot of
yeah,
important you know, um, propositions on that bond, and Booker T was one of them. And 2018 was the start of the discussion for the bond. And someone had to say, Mayor Green told me, he said, Carla, I'm gonna put the bond on there, but you're gonna have to fight. And boy, I didn't know how that was going to be a fight, because Booker T is in everybody's mind, a historical building.
hmm.
Maybe not officially, it's not on the historical
Oh, the
the
registry.
registry,
Yeah, but that's how we think of it.
but that's how
Yeah.
everyone in Sapulpa in past generations, they think of Booker T. So it's very important to the community and for all generations. And so um having that on the bond, and thank you to our people who believed in that and wanted to see that, because that's what people have to understand too, that people had to get out and vote for it, and
Hmm.
wanted it, the things that was on the bond. So the idea could come from us, the city, the council, but the people had to execute that and make that happen. So just blessed for that. But we're here now.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject there because I'm not sure how many folks realize that there were six different propositions on there, and the BTW was one of them, right?
Yes, yes.
And so, and there was the chance that maybe not all of them would pass. We were fortunate that everything passed. I know that I do feel like the BTW Center was probably, I don't know if controversial is the right word, but it was I mean, it's like you said, with the fight to make sure that people recognize the need for it, and you know, when you decided to make it happen, what were they going to look like? So, and I do know there have been some changes because of COVID happening, price increases, things like that. Do you have? Is there any of those you can talk about as far as what originally was part of the deal that now maybe has been modified since then?
Well, everything stayed the same. COVID hurt everyone, of
Yeah.
course.
Hmm.
And I think the biggest thing was the delays and what order that we took every proposition, because of course, the light on 49th Street, we were having so many accidents on 117, and so that was a big issue, and that was slow because you got to work with ODOT and all these different projects. And then the downtown project, the economic development, that was something that the community voted on. And at that time, what I was proud of, and I think that people don't realize, and maybe they, is that everything was real transparent. We had town halls,
Yep.
we
Remember
had
those?
geo bond committee
Mm.
people and meetings. It turned into not just a council or a city thing. We wanted to make sure that it was a public, what do you guys want in change? Because that's always a 50-50. It was 50% of people wanted to see Booker T, wanted to grow. And then there was another half that didn't want to see it torn down or you know disturbed.
Right.
And so that was something that was a challenge.
What, as you were having the conversations with the folks in your ward about this, what did you tell these folks who were saying, you know, I don't want to lose what we've got with the Booker T. Washington building? Did you have to, I don't know, what did you have to say to them in order to get them to kind of come around, or did they?
Well, two things had to happen, and one part of it is our Black community, right?
Uh-huh.
That really has poured into Booker T. So I had to approach our older generation, that school meant something different to them, and say, here are my ideas. And I know that um we don't want to see Booker T be torn down, and I know they didn't want to. But being older in a generation, we want to be able to pass a torch. We want to see those great memories of gathering and development that you have as a child, those memories. We want to be able to pass that on to the younger generation and give them something to be passionate about, and to
Okay.
and gather. And so those were the conversations. So some of the people that older people that I respect in the community, the McGoys, you know
Right.
um Ricky Bruner, I started having conversation, Mr. Carl Newton, Mr. Tilford, who was a principal at the school. I had a conversation with him, and it was many conversations because it's hard to let it go. But my promise was is that when you the new Booker T is not just going to be a shiny building, that now we'll be able to tell a story. So when you walk in that building, that everyone will be able to know the history. So not only are we talking about it through our memory, we're actually seeing that. I saw a picture of the 1949 football team. I saw someone's grandmother in a picture with in a classroom with her little pigtails. So those are the things that I want that generation to be able to see, in our generation and the younger generation to really know Boogie T. And so that was the start of the conversation. Now the flip side of that is that everyone outside of that community was that part of town, the north side, the hill, that side of town that people used to be afraid to go across the railroad tracks.
Really? Okay.
So that was a conversation that I had, when I say the fights, but it was conversations because people were like, well, I don't know about putting $8.5 million dollars in a community that people would be afraid to go to.
Yeah.
And so had to remind them that that's changed. That part of town is diverse now. And so we're not just serving a certain minority. This is for all of Sapulpa, that everyone can come up and enjoy. And so that was the two-sided fight of that, is to convince that we had that mentality, and that not knowing of, well, how will that look
Right.
like? So that was the biggest thing. Old school, and everyone that lived not across the tracks.
Okay. So what are some things that you're going to be doing with the new center that you think will kind of lend itself towards more bringing people from all across town up to the BTW building? I know that I know at one time there was a discussion about having multiple gymnasiums. And then at the same time, they were saying, well, we don't want to get rid of the one we have. That's historic. And I know that there was a lot of different people that were involved in these conversations at different times. And now it sounds like, I mean, I think are we still going to have multiple gymnasiums, or just the one, or maybe one now and one later or something?
Well, that was the part that hurt, um, at first, because I think the whole idea was to have two gyms, and you could provide AAU ball and
Right. Yep.
different things, and that would bring in different people from different areas. But as we got into COVID, and that $7.5 million dollars in 2020, now we're in 2025, and that money doesn't go a long way. So
Yeah.
as we started working with the architect, we had to get real creative about what does this look like. And the school bond kind of helped, because now that the school is revamping and having a performing arts center and all the things that now here we work hand in hand. And
Hmm.
so we said, if we have a gym that can provide, we can have basketball, we can have volleyball, people can play pickleball. I didn't really know anything about pickleball until I had a conversation with Will Berry, and he's like, like he is a pickleball fan. And
I
so
didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, and so here is something that everyone is interested in. And then we're going to have a upstairs track, because you know being able to come up to Booker T and walk, when the weather is like it is now, and maybe you don't get out to the parks because it's too cold.
Right.
Now you have a place to go work out.
Okay.
Um, Also, it was important, the old gym, because that's really the biggest thing that, especially my generation, that we remember, that was important, is going and playing basketball. So, kind of revamping y- the gym so you can have activities and receptions. And I know that Susan would do a great job at providing for kids programs, giving our kids something to do and somewhere to go and develop. And so I think that it will still have the same concept. It just will look a little different, but I think that everyone in the community will be able to utilize. And the important thing is that when you want to do an event, we don't have a place here that's big enough. If you want to hold 250 people, where do you go?
Yeah,
If
there's
you
not very
want,
many.
right. So now that stays in the city. You're not renting something. It's funny, the last Booker T Washington reunion was done, they had to have it in Glenpool at their convention center because Booker T just couldn't, you know, it was hot. They have it in the summertime,
Oh,
so
okay.
air, and it's just you just couldn't provide. You're in your nice clothes, sweating, so and I thought that that was so disappointing, and so I'm just glad that now the reunion, the Booker T. Washington reunion will have a place to come and hold
Yeah,
their reunions.
actually, at the Booker T. Yeah, that would be
Actually,
great.
where they went to school at. So I think that everyone will feel like it's wherever you live. I went to Liberty School. I stayed in Meadowbrook, and I used to ride my bicycle all the way across town, to come up to Booker T.
I bet that was a pretty good haul going up
That's
that hill.
right. My
Yeah.
mom didn't know that I was doing that, but you know, but that's the thing. That's the whole excitement, is giving kids somewhere to gather and see their friends and
Yeah.
hang out and do. And I think, and for our older generation, they used to have the senior citizen nutrition program up there. My mom she managed that, and so having somewhere where people that's getting my age, I'm almost 60, to go and gather and have fun and play games, bingo or whatever, you do, that it'll provide that also.
It's important. Yeah, it is. I really like what you said there about that being really kind of a beacon for the community. And you did kind of touch on something else I wanted to ask about, and I hope I'm not asking you for information you don't have, but you mentioned Susan Beneke, who is the recreation director for the Sapulpa Parks Department. So my understanding is like the entirety of the Parks Department will be moving to Booker T. Is that right after it's completed? Or what's the plan there, or do you know?
We we have space. That's one thing that we did in the architectural plans, is making sure we have office space. How Joan distributes that, but it'll be a possibility that they'll have a home there. We'll have office space to have, not only whoever is managing Boogie T, but the parks, and Susan will have an office and what have you. So it'll be room.
Okay.
So how they shuffle that out, that's out of my hands, but there's space. I know that for a fact in our renderings, in our architectural plans.
Okay, okay. Well, so now get into the specifics of this thing. We are breaking ground on the BTW on December the 19th, right?
11.
At 11 in the morning. Okay. And I'm sure that that's an open event. Anybody who wants to be there can come and
Yes.
enjoy that.
Come out.
Okay.
Come out and join us.
Now, after that, beyond that, can you give us any idea on the timeline for construction or anything?
So um Hoey Construction, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Um, it's 365 days was in the bid of how long they said it was going to take to complete Booker T.
Okay.
But I tell people, that Booker T is 100 years old, over 100 years old.
Hmm.
And so whether you're dealing with weather or unexpected things that come up, whether it's I'm not a
Sure.
construction person, but obviously some things could come up that might delay. But that is the actual 365 days is what they said it would take to complete Booker T.
Okay. Well, I think anybody who's been watching, the Dewey Streetscape project, we're well acquainted with, especially when you start talking about, things in Sapulpa that are 100 years old. Yeah, they might get in there and realize there's some extra infrastructure work that needs to be done. And you want them to do it the right way because you don't want to have to be down here fixing this again in like 10 years or whatever, or less than. So,
And the
for sure.
biggest thing is that, oh, is that going to cost more money? More money,
Yeah.
and so then you got to go back in and find out where does this money come from, or do we have that money to do that? So it's a lot of things involved in, when when construction is started, you got a whole lot of hands in the pot and a whole lot of things that can come up. And then you're dealing with Mother Nature, who, if you're from Oklahoma, you never know.
Yeah,
And
you never know what she's going to do to
right.
you. She might, everything might be great, or she'll have a bad day or a bad couple of months and just dump a historic amount of rain on you.
Rain or because we'll be in the spring. Everyone was worried about, well, they're going to start in the winter months, and we really don't have snow like,
Not like other parts of the
yeah,
country do,
it
right?
really have true snow. So, um, really, what I worry about is the spring, where everybody's like, I love the spring.
Mm,
Well, like tornadoes and rain and,
yeah, I mean, this is the site of a pretty famous,
oh my
Sapulpa
gosh.
tornado. I mean, that's the other, but once in 100 years kind of thing,
Not gonna
Mother
hold
Nature
you.
being what it is, yeah. But okay, so I did want to end this just by bringing up something we were talking about again. So I really appreciate that you decided to refile to run for election again, so you could see this project through. I know that this has been your baby, and I know you want to be here to see it through. So, and you were telling me earlier, we've got several folks that have filed to run for city council with the open seats that are coming up. And you were telling me a second ago that you always appreciate when people do that. You like the idea of people getting involved in local government.
Absolutely. A couple of things. The first part of it is, as people know in my city, just pray for me. I had quadruple heart bypass surgery, and so I was healing, and so seeing Booker T in the bond period to get started and finish up on some of these projects is so amazing to me. And refiling to be on the city council really meant something. It's just about community. If I was born and raised here,
Right.
and you know some things is hard. I seen someone bring up Bayou, some of the things that, when I was younger was part of our childhood. And so seeing that growth, it hurts on one end, but it's great on another end. And
Sure.
in the council, I always say that come out, come out to council meetings. If you're curious about what's going on in your city, and maybe you're not feeling like you're getting the information like you want to get it, come out and see what we're talking about. Find out who is your counselor in your ward. I always told people, whether you agree or disagree, come out. I'll meet you. We can have some coffee. Let's discuss. I think that it's healthy to hear people's concerns, as long as it's not personal. Like
Sure.
sometimes your anger gets personal, and I get that, because I was telling you, that's part of me being on the council. I was mad about something, you know
Yeah.
and I went to the council meeting and I felt like, you know I don't think I'm being heard. I think that, so I understand those feelings, because that was something that motivated me. But you also learn about the process of city council and the in city issues. And so I had a learning period also. So it's important that people get out and learn and know and meet your counselors, because I tell you what, I love Sapulpa. And but can I say that everything that I do or vote on, that everyone is going to agree 100%? It's going to be 50 people that say yay, Carla, and then it's going to be 50% people say, what is she doing? you know
Right. Yeah.
we don't want
That's the
that.
reality of it. Yeah.
Right. So tell me, help me. What is it that you want to see as a collective? Because everybody doesn't process and see things the same way. But yes, it's time for, change, and people are wanting to step up, and that's healthy.
It is, yeah. Having an open conversation and the ability, I mean, that's the kind of community we live in. You don't need really anything to go and file. And if you feel like you want to get involved, Sapulpa is a great place to do it. And this is a great time to be doing it too, I think.
Just passion, you want to have the passion and to do that. It's not easy, and for us, we have to develop we're human too. You have to develop a thick skin, because it's like, okay, I'm not I'm not that. People
Right.
don't know you, and I hope you don't mind if I bring that up, is that I would like to see, and I would be curious what the community thought, that if you could showcase some of the council members every other month or what have you, so people can get to know what's going on in their ward, and be able to maybe send you questions to ask the counselors, and so that way they get to know, and get to know the mindset of their counselors. I think that's healthy. I don't, I can't speak for all the counselors, but I know I would want to do that, and I think if some others would.
Yeah, I think so. It's certainly something that the people deserve to have, it's
Absolutely.
a nice view into the city council and how they think and why they maybe voted on certain issues or something. But yeah,
To
that's
be
definitely something we're
involved.
going to step in.
Like, I think that's the biggest complaint that I hear, that people feel like that they're not being heard.
Hmm.
And so being involved and heard, but I always say, with a issue, what's a solution? What do you suggest?
Right.
Because we all don't agree with everything, but it's good to hear other people's point of view.
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of times what you'll find out too, if I can just interject this, just that people will have a proposed solution or something, and then it'll turn out that city council actually already considered that, and this is why they decided not to go that route. I think that's something that happens a lot by folks who aren't as involved. They won't come to the city council meetings, but they get on Facebook and complain about it, but not understanding the full picture of, we did it this way for a reason, we being the city council did it this way for a reason. Here's what it was. And so, yeah, I mean, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I do think that's something the Sapulpa Times is going to work more towards doing, is helping all of you hear from our city council more often. So,
Because we argue too on the
yeah, that's
council.
true.
We don't see
Yeah.
eye to eye, like certain things. Everybody's got their point of view, and so we're trying to get through some of those things. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, Micah.
Well, hey, you're welcome. Thanks for coming to be a part of this. It was great to have you again. Hopefully, it won't
Thank
be the
you.
last time. And I mean, hopefully, maybe we'll be talking about Booker T, maybe something else. I don't
Oh yeah, and hopefully, and you guys need to come out to the groundbreaking to make sure I don't cry.
know. Yeah, she's
Like,
gonna
I
cry.
turned into a
I feel like
crybaby.
it's going to happen. It doesn't. I mean, it's going to be hard not to. I'm sure that'll be a really momentous occasion there
Yeah.
for sure. So, anyway, thank you again for coming and hanging out with us, guys. Be sure to reach out to us again on Facebook, and just send us an email if there's anything else you'd like to know. And we'll be sure to pass that along to Miss Gunn. And if you have ideas for other questions and things that you'd like us to ask our city council, just like she mentioned, send that along as well, and we'll work to get you the answer that you're looking for there. So I appreciate it, guys, and we will see you next time on the Time Loop. Have a good day. Bye bye.